Good afternoon, and thank you for being with us today. The show is Diaspora Dispatches, and these are the latest news from the continent of Africa. My name is Miriam Mugutu. We start with Somalia, and a huge explosion has gone off in Somalia's capital in Mogadishu. A suicide bomber is reported to have targeted vehicles at checkpoint along the highway to the Aden International Airport. The attack in an area called the Kilometer 4 Junction is said to have left several injured, including soldiers and civilians, that is according to local sources. The area is less than 5 kilometers from the airport where candidates vying for the presidency are meant to be delivering their campaign speeches to Parliament. And the African Union mission in the country has imposed a curfew at the Air Force hangar, and it surrounds the venue for Sunday's presidential election. The president will be chosen by MPs from 39 candidates who have put themselves forward. The complicated voting process involving the election of members for 2 houses of parliament via an indirect system has already been delayed for more than a year, partly because of insecurity in the country. And still staying with Somalia, and the African Union Transition Mission in Somalia, ATMIS, has imposed a curfew of the AFISOM Air Force hangar in the capital, Mogadishu, and the surrounding areas ahead of the presidential elections slated for Sunday. The curfew runs from Tuesday to Monday next week. More than 300 members of parliament will converge at the airport to vote for the president, who will govern for the next 4 years. Key candidates in the election include President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo and his 2 predecessors, Hassan Sheikh Mohamud and Sharif Sheikh Ahmed, who are widely regarded as front-runners. The vote is 15 months behind the schedule due to wrangles among top politicians over the modalities of the elections. And then we head over to Libya, where the Eastern-based parliament has said it wants the government to a government it appointed under Fathi Bashagha to be based for now in the coastal city of Sirte. The announcement is the clearest acknowledgement yet that Mr. Bashagha cannot yet take over the capital, Tripoli. Libya has been split between 2 opposing cabinets after parliament in the east elected Mr. Bashagha as the new prime minister in February. The country's incumbent prime minister, Abdul Hamid Deiba, who is based in the capital, has refused to hand over power without an election. Both men are supported by armed factions, and it is feared hostilities between the two could ignite a new round of conflict. Libya has experienced repeated violence ever since long-time leader Muammar Gaddafi was removed from power in 2011. And then aid agencies say several asylum seekers in the UK have gone into hiding because of fears they will be sent to Rwanda. Under a deal signed last month, people judged to have entered the country illegally face being flown to Rwanda for resettlement. The Red Cross and the Refugee Council say the threat of removal has prompted some of those seeking asylum to self-harm. One has attempted suicide. The charities have criticized the British government's plan as a breach of the duty of care. The Home Office in London says it takes every step to prevent self-harm or suicide. It says it hopes its policy will undermine the business model of people traffickers. And then you head over to Malawi, and the Malawian parliament has started public inquiries into the capital, Lilongwe, on a proposal to abolish the death penalty following last month's adoption of a report recommending the move. It comes after Parliament mandated its Legal Affairs Committee to solicit views from the general public on the subject before potentially changing any laws. Malawi courts appear to have abolished the death sentence in April last year after Supreme Court judge heard the petition of a convicted murderer and ruled that the death penalty negates the right to life, which is otherwise provided for under Malawi's constitution. The judge then ordered the resentencing of all cases where the death penalty was handed down. However, 4 months later, the Supreme Court issued a statement saying the judge had expressed his personal opinion and the death penalty remained applicable. And then we head over to Burkina Faso, and the military in Burkina Faso says it has killed at least 50 jihadist fighters in 2 operations. A statement which is not possible to verify independently said a rapid reaction force responded to an ambush on Monday in the northwest Bakol du Mohon region near the border with Mali. It said 40 enemy fighters were killed and several soldiers were slightly wounded. The military also said a commando unit assisted by volunteers launched an attack near Djigu in the southwest near the border with Ivory Coast. More than 2,000 people had been killed and almost 2 million had fled their homes since jihadist attacks started in Burkina Faso in 2015. And then the Yemi Askanwi coalition of opposition leader Ousmane Sonko and the Wale Senegal coalition for former President Abdoulaye Wade decided to unite in order to win the next parliamentary elections in Senegal. In 2017, the coalition backed by President Macky Sall won 125 seats out of the possible 665. After rounds of negotiations and discussions, the main Senegalese opposition group sealed an unprecedented deal earlier this week. The Yemi Askanwi coalition of opposition leader Ousmane Sonko and the Wallu Senegal coalition of former President Abdoulaye Wade decided to join forces ahead of July legislative elections. The objective is clear. The two largest opposition coalitions want to avoid competing lists, and mostly they want to increase chances of winning seats over a candidate from the ruling party. In order to beat the APR party of President Macky Sall, the opposition groups will present candidates together on the department level. And then we go to Burkina Faso. And the military court in Ouagadougou on Tuesday sentenced former Burkina Faso President Blaise Compaoré and 9 other defendants to pay more than 800 million CFA francs, that is equivalent to about 1.2 million euros in damages, to the beneficiaries of former head of state Thomas Sankara and his companions assassinated in 1987. The amount of damages for repatriation of moral and economic prejudice amounts to 807.5 million CFA francs, including a symbolic franc for the heirs of Thomas Sankara, said Judge Obain Meda. This sum will have to be paid jointly by Blaise Compaoré, the former commander of his guard, Hyacinth Kafando, and the former head of the army in 1987, Gilbert Diédé, all sentenced to life imprisonment in early April for their involvement in the assassination, as well as 7 other defendants sentenced to between 3 and 20 years in jail. According to the court decision, Burkinabe government will have to compensate the beneficiaries if the convicted persons are unable to pay that amount. The military court, however, rejected a request for the return of Thomas Sankara's property to his family. Then we head over to Algeria, and the latest is that Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov visited gas-producing ally Algeria for talks on Tuesday as Europe jockeys to secure alternative energy supplies in light of Russia's invasion to Ukraine. Algeria is a major gas supplier to Europe, providing 11% of its imports compared with 47% from Russia. Algiers abstained from the United Nations General Assembly, overwhelmingly passed a resolution in March demanding Russia immediately withdraw from Ukraine. Italy, Spain and other European Union member countries have looked to Algeria as they seek to cut their independence on Russian oil and gas. But Algeria, anxious to consolidate its long-standing alliance with Russia, has repeatedly stressed that it lacks the capacity to meet such demand in the short term. Asked about Algeria's gas delivery, Lavrov said that Russia, Algeria and other gas exporters believe we should respect deals that have already been reached. Moscow's top diplomat said trade between the two countries had hit $3 billion last year, despite the coronavirus pandemic. And we end with some news from Nigeria, where the Islamic State group has published a video which it says shows the execution of 20 Christian civilians in northeastern Nigeria's Borno state. Speaking in the Hausa language, one of the masked militants, who was brandishing a knife, said it was to avenge the killing of the group's leader in the Middle East earlier this year. It was published on the IS-linked news outlet and shows three groups of captives in civilian clothes. The authorities have not yet commented on the video. The IS militants, which operate in Lake Chad region under the name Islamic State, West African province ISWAP, along with another Islamic militant group, Boko Haram, have recently suffered huge losses as a result of attacks by a multinational military force. Such military campaigns in the past have usually been followed by propaganda videos from extremist groups. The video has not been verified, nor it's difficult to know where that video was shot. And that is the latest news from the continent of Africa. Very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for tuning in. Now, just a quick one of some of the items, just a rundown on some of the things that have brought it to your attention. And of course, one of the things that has caught my eye is the visit by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov to Algeria, knowing well and good that just maybe over 2 weeks ago, was it France or Italy, visited Algeria. It was Italy. Visited Algeria for the similar, in search of alternative gas, because right now EU is boycotting buying its gas from Russia. Russia has been the main supplier of gas in EU and also in the US. And because of the conflict that is currently underway, the Russian invasion into Ukraine, and they've been trying to get alternative of that. And so they've been trying to reach out to countries in Africa. They've reached out to Algeria. They've reached out to Nigeria. They've reached out to Libya was a great source of that, perhaps still is, but it can't produce as much because of the existing conflict. And we will get to that in just a bit. And so just recently they visited Algeria and they had conversations. And now Russia's foreign minister, and when you see Sergei Lavrov speak, that is Putin speaking. He's a very a close ally of President, obviously, Putin, and also just one of the few men that he truly trusts. For you to be given such a position, and he's been speaking and trying to defend, what Russia is doing. We've seen him even that time that other members walked out of the UN National Assembly, and he was trying to, explain why Russia is doing what it's doing, and in solidarity with the Ukraine, the other members walked out. And so, but he stood there, and we see even in the middle of this crisis, they're still able to walk around across the world and visit countries that Russia still perceives to be a bit friendly, and see if they continue to, just garner more support and make sure that their foreign policy still, works. And we've known that Russia has been seeking to just, get a footing here in Africa, because in the past that has been quite a bit elusive. But it appears it's been making, a good amount of strides, despite of what else, is happening over there. And so the Russian foreign minister visited in Algeria, and it's interesting because this gas talks looks to be the main subject of discussion that happened in Algeria. And Algeria is a major gas supplier to Europe, providing 11% of its imports, compared with 47% from Russia. So Russia was the key supplier of this gas. So this war has really affected, countries in Europe, Germany, France, and others. So now, I don't know if they were caught frank-footed on why they were not making these plans when they could see these advances, from Russia way, before. I don't know. So now it appears the invasion in Ukraine, which is not even the first time, must have broken the camel's back. So now they're saying because this gas is the carrot that Russia keeps dangling, because if we do something, then it will cut off, or that will be affected, because that has really affected Europe, to be honest. And so they've decided, you know what? Maybe we just find new partners and new suppliers of this very important commodity. So they've approached a couple of countries across the world, and some few, particularly in Africa, and Algeria is one of them. So to see that the Russian foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, is in Algeria, and they're talking about gas, And this gas that Algeria is supposed to be supplying to these other countries that have now refused, are now trying to cut their supply of, from Russia. And that is very interesting. What I see is this proxy war, starting to build over here in the continent. And in the long run, we might see a more, like Africa is already divided. And that's why it's easier to just come in and conquer and just run your game here and it's fine. Because Africa is already divided. African Union is already divided through Francophone-speaking countries and Anglophone-speaking countries and Islamic countries and these other countries. So it's already divided in so many other facets. Arabic is, countries who perceive themselves as Arabs up there in the north, including someone, another one in the Horn of Africa here in Somalia. Somalia is a bit confused of itself. It does not know whether it's truly in Africa or it belongs to the Arab world. So it depends on which day Somalia is woken up, so it decides. And same to Morocco, but I think it calmed down now. It believes it's in Africa, but African Union has been divided in so many facets, and so it has been very difficult for us to put up a very united front when it comes to issues that affect the continent. So that has been our greatest downfall, our disunity in all these issues and things that we can't even help, like our ethnicity, like our languages, like, things like that we really can't help. You were just born in that country and it should be like that. And so our diversity has been, unfortunately, our downfall. So when you see, and then, Algeria is a former colony of France. And, right now, Algeria has an ongoing beef with France, which I'll not get into, but they're not in the best working terms as far as diplomatic ties is concerned. So I think Russia has perhaps seen that and is trying to come in. And of course, Algeria has been a long-term ally of Russia. It's not the first, so it's not strange that Sergei Lavrov will visit Algeria. It has been a long-term ally of Russia in the continent, among other countries. Even when Russia, countries are voting in the United Nations, member countries were voting to remove Russia, to pass a resolution in March demanding Russia immediately withdraw from Ukraine. Algeria, abstained from voting, so it shows you where it lies, and it of course that friendship with Russia, it's something that it appears to value so much. So it's not strange that Foreign Affairs Minister of Russia is in Algeria right now, but I think the timing is suspect, and especially why are they talking about the gas that Europe is refusing? The rest of Europe is trying to cut off ties with Russia, who is their main supplier, but now they're trying to find other alternative, and Algeria was one in their consideration. And then now Algeria comes out to say, as much as the rest of Europe is asking us to supply us with this gas, we are really not able to meet their demand. In the short term, maybe, but in the long term, it lacks the capacity to meet such demand right now, because Europe needs it right now. So Algeria is saying no, it can't. So I don't know what you make of this. Maybe it's just my journalistic mind reading too much into it. Why did Algeria enter into deals? Because I remember talking about this news here just a couple of days ago. After Italy went there and met, and they talked and they said, fine, we have agreed, we will supply, and some other countries in Europe. And now Algeria is, after that visit, after that meeting, it is saying, no, we don't believe we are able to deliver that right now. So what do you think is happening? What do you think is happening? Europe might be forced to just go back to their nemesis in Russia and continue getting that, gas. Because I think in the present, it will be very difficult to find an alternative that will fully, supply the gas that Russia was supplying to these countries. So maybe they might just have to continue getting that supply, but as they work in the long run, how they will have to solve that problem. And so Algeria is saying, nah, these countries, we're not able to immediately meet their demand in the short term, because this was something that is abrupt, and it makes sense, and it might bring some discomfort, especially because we're not able to do that right now. But I see a proxy war brewing there, and soon we will get the details of that. Okay, so I told you here yesterday when we were talking about the Somalia election that I said, between now and Sunday, when that election is supposed to be happening on the 15th, hopefully there will be no grenades being thrown out there in Mogadishu, or parliament being attacked. Or I joked about it here, but it was not really a joke. And then guess what? Today, that is exactly what happened, okay? So a huge explosion has gone off in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, because we know the issues of insecurity has been used a lot by some key players in Somalia to try to push for the elections not to happen. So it has been a weapon that has been used. Of course, Boko Haram also targets these leaders. So it's difficult to know, is this attacks that have been organized by Boko Haram, or are these attacks that, not Boko Haram, sorry, Al-Shabaab, sorry, my mind is present here. I think that video of Boko Haram beheading some Christians in Nigeria is disturbing even to think about. You can tell me if you've seen it somewhere there. The Islamic State, I think, shared it online, but of course it has not been verified, and it's difficult to verify whether that is in Nigeria or Cameroon and when that video was taken, but they're saying it is recent. So you can share with me the details of that if you know any. But we're talking about this attack in Mogadishu by Al-Shabaab, and this is not new. Anytime elections is about to happen, they will mount attacks after attacks, both some players in Somalia, the political players, and in conjunction with criminals and the terrorists themselves, the Al-Shabaab. So as it is, a suicide bomber is reported to have targeted vehicles at a checkpoint along the highway to the Aden International Airport. And the attack in an area called the Kilometer 4 Junction is said to have left several injured, including soldiers and civilians, according to local sources. The area is less than 5 kilometers from the airport, where candidates vying for the presidency are meant to be delivering their campaign speeches to parliament. So they even have to go deliver their speeches in at the airport, because that is the most secure place, I guess. Not even the presidential palace, Villa Somalia, because even there they've bombed. Some grenades have gone off just near the presidential palace. So the airport seems to be the most secure place in Somalia, and so that is where the elections will happen. Okay, from the airport, where candidates vying for the presidency are meant to be delivering their campaign speeches to parliament. Okay, and the African Union mission in the country has imposed now a curfew at the Air Force hangar and its surroundings, the venue for Sunday's presidential election, and the president will be chosen by MPs from 39 candidates. So as we speak right now, 39 candidates have offered themselves to be chosen as Somalia's next government. So that has increased competition to the incumbent president, Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo, who is vying for his second term. Remember, these elections were supposed to have happened 15 months ago, last year in February, but because of similar reasons, attacks and other issues and the wrangles that have continued in the government, that has made it impossible. But every time they attempt to do this, this is what happens. So yesterday I joked about it. I said between now and Sunday, I can't tell you the number of grenades that will possibly go off, and now today it's a suicide bomber, so it's even worse. And nobody was, well, a few people were hurt, but no deaths have been reported. I don't know if any deaths have been reported yet. And as I said there, the African Union Transition Mission in Somalia, remember, what do you call it? AMISOM AMISOM is no longer there. So what we have in Somalia is the African Union Transition Mission in Somalia, and they're supposed to be working there in the next 2 years, ensure that they beef up security, they make sure things are working well before they hand over the security apparatus to the Somalia's government. So that is their core mandate, to get the security of Somalia in order before they leave and hand over the instruments of security to the government and the forces there in Somalia, which I think will be a tall order. And I think that can be possible. And I think that will depend so much on the person that will come next, that will be elected, or rather selected on Sunday, because, you know, Somalis don't have a direct election. A few people are selected through clanism and through a few activists and through other interest groups, and then those people who have been selected, they make up the parliament. We have the lower house, which have 275 members, and then we do have the Senate, which have 54 members. They all make a total of 325. So these 325 parliamentarians are the ones that are going to choose out of the 39 candidates who have offered themselves. Well, that's a lot of people to divide these 325 votes. So the person will get the majority of that. I don't know if they have 50+1, I don't think so. But the person with the majority will carry the day, will be the next Somali's president. And so all this chaos and conflict and all whatever you're seeing right now playing out, there could be a few elements in that are not really interested. One, in changing, in a regime change, and two, in just handing over, so that could be what is happening. But also, Al-Shabaab does not like that system of democracy. Al-Shabaab would rather have something similar to what we have in Saudi Arabia or Morocco or these other Arabic countries that don't have this direct kind of a democracy. Theirs works for them. They have kings and all this, and it works for them. So they don't like, so they're fighting against this Western, what they perceive as a Western democracy, which it is a Western democracy, elections and all that. It is a Western kind of a democracy, so they don't like that at all. So that's why every time elections are being organized, they take that opportunity to cause a lot of insecurity and to kill as many people as they can, and then to cause chaos. But also, some elements in the government don't want the election. So it's very easy for it to pass as though it's Al-Shabaab attacking. Well, we know also there are others who have been accused of, sponsoring such kind of chaos there. So anyway, enough with Somalia, but we shall be, of course, monitoring that situation clearly and see how that, how that will work out in the long run. I don't know if there's anything else I want to talk about, but I think the rest, the rest of oh no, I told you we'll look at the Libyan story. Just quickly, I'll do that very, very quickly. And the Libya's Eastern-based parliament has said it wants the government it appointed under Fathi Bashaga to be based for now in the capital city of Sirte. Okay, the announcement is the clearest acknowledgement yet that Mr. Bashaga cannot yet take over in the capital Tripoli, because the current incumbent Prime Minister, Abdul Hamid Deiba, who is based in the capital, has refused to hand over power without an election. And Libya has been split between two opposing cabinets after Parliament in the East elected Bashaga as the new Prime Minister in February. So, Sirte is in East, and the capital, Tripoli, is in the West. So there's always that, push and pull. And it's interesting because they do have a new prime minister who was elected. Of course, it was very controversial, but the incumbent is saying he can't really hand over power until they have a proper election. So both men are surrounded by armed factions, and it is feared hostilities between the two could ignite a new round of conflict. And Libya has experienced repeated violence over since long-time leader Muammar Gaddafi was removed from power in 2011. And a country like France has been named to be one of the key players in this war. And a country like Egypt is also a key player in this war, and some countries in Middle East, because they believe that and I would not be surprised that they're the ones who are supporting the incumbent Prime Minister Abdullahi Deiba not to leave power, because he's a bit friendly, and he seems to be a candidate that is widely accepted and endorsed by a country like France, which we know has a lot of stakes. And it's just part and parcel of the chaos that is happening in Libya, among other countries. We know NATO destroyed Libya, and so, you know, these are just the after effects. And so they're pushing, I'm sure they're pushing for this prime minister not to step down, because the other one from the east, that is where the renegade general Khalifa, I think, comes from, and they know should he take over, I think things will be different in terms of the Muslim Brotherhood activities and all that. So they will make sure this person stays on by all means necessary, even if plunges this country back into chaos. Yes, that's how it works out when you hear you know, external interference. That's it. That's the face of it. And Libya has been a casualty of that, and that country has never been the same again. Quite sad. But anyway, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. That's all I had for you. Hopefully you can meet here tomorrow, God willing. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Good afternoon.